Welcome to today's webinar, How to Keep Food Community Members Involved. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Zsófia Perényi from TVE, the Hungarian Association of Conscious Consumers. And I also the education and training expert for Urgency, the international network of community-supported agriculture. I am delighted to welcome you today. I am going to briefly introduce our panelists. Then we will get the ball rolling and we will keep the format very conversational with short questions and answers. While I have brought some of my own questions along, we also really welcome your questions. Let me explain. Throughout the session, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen next to the participants button to share your questions for the speakers. We will turn to these twice during the webinar, so please don't hold back. Post them as you think of them, because the first round of questions from the floor will be right after the initial question I will be asking each of the panelists. Of course, we will try to answer most of these questions directly in the Q&A, but we will also select some of them to be asked by the person directly. Therefore, please ready to be given the floor to actually put your questions to the panelists. The idea is to make the webinar a bit more interactive. If you are not comfortable with asking your question directly, please mention it in your question, adding a note like, I want my question to be asked by the facilitator. On that note, let me introduce and thank Samuel and Jocelyn from Urgency, who will be together supervising the technical operation, monitoring the chat, and facilitating the Q&A. If you are experienced and any technical issues, please send them a message through the chat. Note that the chat and the Q&A are two separate functions, so please do use the chat for technical questions and the Q&A for the questions to the presenters. Finally, if you are on social media, Twitter, Facebook, please use Food and More or CSA hashtags and mention us in your tweets. Thanks to the Twitter and Facebook accounts shared in the chat. Before we move into our topic of the day, I like to ask you to take the short poll that is now appearing on your screen. It will be a way to see so maybe Jocelyn and Sam can help me because something happened. Okay, so you can see the poll results.
Sophie, can you see the results now?
Yes, now I see.
Perfect.
Okay, sorry for that.
No problem. That's all right. I think almost everybody took the poll, so it's completely all right.
Okay.
Can you see your screen still, Sophie, or?
Yes, I had some problems, but now I see it again. Okay. So, okay, let's continue. As a food community organizer, you wonder why the members of your food co-op or CSA have been turning into couch potatoes. during the last few months with a surprisingly low level of initiative, you have no idea how to reignite the initial burst of motivation and creativity that led to setup of your food community. Your core group members are volunteers, they feel exhausted and are quitting the CSA silently one by one. You wonder how to stop the leak. Food and More is a project that tries to provide answers for these challenges. Food and More focuses on developing training and mentoring programs tailored to the needs of the members of food communities like CSA groups. The main objective is to consolidate the growing food communities, including CSA networks, and to encourage their members to be more active in their groups and to be more socially engaged. This webinar is the first of a series of 3 where we will try to address some of the key challenges faced by food communities in their everyday operation. In today's webinar, we are lucky to have 3 great speakers with us. They will help us to get familiar with the debate on how to organize your food communities and make sure everyone is involved. They are seasoned CSA farmers and core group members who have direct experience in facing these challenges. We will ask our panelists to share recipes of how to keep CSA members involved. First, we have with us today Tomo Kane. Tomo Kane is the founder and grower of Cae Tan CSA wells. They grow food for 130 households, host volunteers, trainees, school and university groups. Tom works also as an advisor throughout the UK for community growing enterprises. This year, he is establishing an online training program, how to effectively set up and run a CSA, as well as having over 20 years practical experience. He has a degree in organic farming and an international certificate in biodynamic farming. Welcome, Tom. Then comes Anika Füger, who has been active since 2016 in Solawi, Düsseldorf, and since 2018 part of the elected board, studied communications and cultural sciences. Now working part-time for the German CSA Netzwerk Solidarische Landwirtschaft, project management, remaining the time in the field of Solawi, Düsseldorf, coordinating harvesting and work days with the members. And please also welcome Tomáš Uhnak. Tomáš received his master's degrees from the Academy of Fine Arts in Prague and from the Food Policy Program at City University London. Currently, he is a PhD student at the Czech University of Life Sciences, researching the discursive and ideological formations of agrarian and food regime paradigms. He is also an agriculture and food system analyst and advisor for the Czech Pirate Party at the Chamber of Deputies, Parliament of the Czech Republic. He is mainly associated with AMPI, Association of Local Food Initiatives, where his agenda involves advocacy for community-supported agriculture and food sovereignty. He is a CSA coordinator in Prague. I'd like to start with a question to you, Tom. What is the issue with CSA members? Is it the high level of turnover in the CSA groups from one year to another and the difficulty to have enough members? Or is it rather that a lot of members turn out to be passive consumers when we would like to expect them to be a food superheroes?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll kind of break down the question into like the 4 different parts because there's kind of different issues within each of those areas. So starting with like high turnover of members, I would have said that like 10, 15 years ago, even 20 years ago, when CSAs first were sort of started appearing within the UK, I think there was a high level of what we call here attrition, which is like turnover of members. And that was probably up around like 30%. And I think that was just down to the fact that CSA was like a very new concept. and people didn't really know quite what to make of it. But I'd say more recently, within sort of the last 5-10 years, that turnover or attrition rate is probably more like about 10-15%. And then I'd say recently with the COVID epidemic, that's gone right down. I know for ourselves, we're probably on about where we're under 5% the last year. And even before that, we were always under 10%. So for me, I feel like actually turnover of members is not a real problem currently. And it seems like it's getting less and less of a problem as there's a growing awareness of local food and a desire for it. Generally, the reason for attrition, like groups that do surveys as to why people are leaving, you could say it's down to life circumstances largely is like the first reason, like death, divorce, moving home, just changes in membership status. And then the second reason is generally that people get too much veg and they just don't know what to do with it. So those seem to be the key reasons that people will leave. So I'd say like top tips for actually reducing your rate of like turnover, rate of attrition, fundamentally just provide really good food and the right amount, not giving people too much or too little. It's kind of just a matter of working out what's the right amount for people. Good communication, like just clear communication with your members, so you know so they know where you stand and what your relationship is, who's going to receive what, who's going to give what. And for us, I'd say a weekly contact point, which we took from the AMAP visiting in France years ago, that actually every week there's one of us growers, because we have two main growers at Cae Tan. So there's always one of us available for 2 hours every week to talk to the members at pickup. And I think that's really important to develop a really personal relationship with our members. And then, I think just developing relationships and becoming part of the community, so you really integrate with the community. And so that's kind of covering that area. Then I'd move on to having enough members or not. As I said, I think most CSAs over the last year have found that actually they've got big waiting lists. I know we currently supply 130 households and we have 100 households on a waiting list. We've helped set up a second CSA locally in the last year who we thought would take on our waiting list. And within a year, they've got their own 70 members and their own waiting list. So it seems to me like there's such a growing desire for CSA that actually membership is becoming like less and less of an issue. We've currently got 3 CSAs operating locally, 3 veg CSAs, a meat CSA, a flour CSA, and we've got 2 or 3 more CSAs in the process of setting up in the coming years. So it feels like it's a really prime time for CSAs to actually get up and running. And then I'd go on to this issue of passive consumers. I mean, personally, I worked with lots of different CSAs before setting up this one, and it was something that I came across a lot, like that difficulty in the relationship where the farmer, the growers, they felt like they didn't have enough support from the membership, but the membership felt sometimes really hassled by the CSA. And my understanding of it is, if you're clear from the start what's expected from both sides, and actually in our case, we don't actually expect anything from our members other than that they pay for their produce. And actually, the vast majority of our members, their support, their community support, is the fact that they give us an income every month. And that's a really valid level of support. And then from there, there's another level of support where people can get involved in the core group, or they can come and volunteer. But actually, we have no expectations. And I think that then takes the stress out of the situation. And I think for us, that works really well. That works, we've got a lot of support from our members. We tell them what support we need. And if they can give us that support, they do. And if they can't, we kind of deal with it, but we don't get stressed with each other about it. And then lastly, on volunteering, I think I mean, the vast majority of CSAs work with volunteers, but I would say don't rely on volunteers. And I'd say that's also how we work, that we very much benefit from the input of our volunteers physically and socially, mentally. You know, it's really important for us to have volunteers very engaged in the project. We wouldn't get the work done if we didn't have the amount of volunteers we have, but we don't put pressure on volunteers to be there particular hours. We set days where we say Wednesday and Thursday are our volunteer days. And we found in the 7 years we've been running that actually we've always had adequate numbers of volunteers. I'd say in that 7 years, there's probably been 2 days where we've suddenly come unstuck because we didn't have the volunteers we thought we would. So I would say the key thing is don't rely on volunteers. Whatever input volunteers can give, I think just be very appreciative of that and actually showing your appreciation and really bringing them in so they feel very much part of the group and they feel very valued. I think it's that balance also of saying when you need help and actually being able to ask people for help, because people won't come unless you ask them for help, but actually not getting to the point where you're desperate because no one's coming, because ultimately the CSA should generate enough income to actually function without volunteers. And the volunteers is almost like a bonus that makes it all work much more effectively. So yeah, I think that's me on the first question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for setting up the background, Tom. Anika, in order to be committed, CSA members probably need clarity about their roles and responsibilities. Could you please share your own experience with organizing a CSA core group? How to communicate clearly about each member's duties?
Yeah, hi, thank you. First, to have a frame, because our CSA is, I think, quite different from the one Tom described. Ours was, the Solawi Düsseldorf was founded from consumers, and so it was very driven by the wish of the consumers to be part of many processes, to be part, for example, of the harvest every week. So yeah, we are a Solawi that has a high degree of participation. Here on the picture, you, for example, see a vision stay before COVID, where we met and tried to formulate together a vision. So in our CSA, it's really important from the start to communicate to new people that this is how we work, that it's actually a big wish that you engage with the Solawi and bring yourself in. We do this by, simply on the homepage, we have a FAQ where we formulate that this is the idea of our community. And we also very clearly formulate why it's something different from just getting vegetables. Then what we do is in our group we try to rotate then these roles and the responsibilities. For example, we have a elected board of 4 people, and we have the plan that every election, that is every 2 years, 2 old members get out and 2 new ones get in, so that we have some freshness and rotation in it. We also have work groups where we now have elected speakers that also have a fixed role and fixed responsibilities, so that the people who get this role know that it's expected that they report to the bigger group about what the small group is doing, and so on. What we now want to establish, we did not try yet, but it's our goal for this year, is to have feedback rounds, because we found out that it's sometimes, there needs to be a space where people can talk about if they feel really good with their role, or if there are moments where they feel exhausted or something, and that's a room that's not open yet, and that's something we want now to establish. It's a bit like, we already established talks with our paid staff, but we also want to have these talks now with people that are not paid but have like some responsibilities, so that they have a space where they can say what they want to change about their work, and where they need more others to be more supportive, and so on. Yes, and what do we do to communicate this all? We have an intern member forum where we write down what you can do, where you can be part of, and it's interactive, so everybody can answer and say what he or she wants to give or do. Then we also have, like for meetings now, templates for protocols where you can really clearly write down what is to be done until when, and who will be coordinating it and keeping an eye on it. That's also really helpful to have these templates. Yes, and this is how we try to do this and communicate this. But also, as we wish for engagement, we also say each year is different, every person is different. It's not that we expect the same from everybody, because we are not with the same resources. So we always try to communicate to the people that they should not feel stressed by our CSA, because this was one thing why people quit the CSA, because they had a bad feeling, because they did not have enough time to be present, and then thought, oh, I'm a bad member. And that's something we are working on, because we think there are years where people have no time or have a stress situation, and they should stay with us. And we are getting better with this, and our dropout rate also is going down by each year. So
Thank you.
You can see the forum. You can see how it looks like.
Okay. Thank you, Anika. To all participants, please continue to send your questions to our panelists through the Q&A button located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Next, we will hear Tomáš from the Czech Republic. Tomáš, how do you make clear that CSA is more than just a basket of fresh vegetables? How do you share the principles of CSA within your groups?
Hello, everybody, and thank you for the question, Sofia, and thank you for inviting AMPI, Association of Local Food Initiatives from the Czech Republic, which I represent today. Well, currently there are about 80 CSA groups all around Czech Republic, containing around 5,000 people, farmers included. So each group has an individual plan and individual approach. I can speak for the CSA group that I coordinate. There are, let's say, 3 essential moments throughout the year. The first moment is when we meet in the beginning of the season with the group. We do the planning, we set up and remind the values. And this is a very important part of the year, the beginning of the season, because we have new members at the end of each year. There are some members who leave. Usually they move out of the city. We have to include new and more people. So this is a good time to remind of the principles, especially the principle of solidarity and shared risks. And another essential moment is throughout the year, when we are constantly feeding the group with a discussion, with news from the farm. We are informing the members about the farm plans, the farm visits, etc. And these are the moments that we use also to remind our members again and again of the principles. And the third essential moment is at the end of the year, when we're doing the evaluation through the evaluation forums, through the discussions. And again, we can share, or we are sharing let's say what went wrong, what went well, and there is enough space, or we're trying to give enough space for each member to share, either in person or through the form. And but just to paraphrase your question, I do have to admit that occasionally for some members, CSA does represent just a basket of fresh vegetables. And in these cases, and it's quite interesting that usually I get the feedback about people who treat the CSA as a sort of service. I get a feedback from our farmers because they can sense that they behave towards the farmers in a completely different manner, as if they were purchasing a service, hands-off approach. And every time we talk face to face with these members, trying to go through the principles once again with them, and so far it worked. And I think farm visits are very important to kind of connect with the reality on the farm, and connect with or relate better to our farmers. And speaking about the solidarity principle, for example, last year we were quite challenged, and we had to apply the solidarity principle big time because of quite significant crop failure due to the climate change. And most of our members did feel that we had smaller shares, etc. But what was absolutely essential was that I was in touch with our farmers. I was traveling to the farm. There was also a mental and physical breakdown on the farm with the farmers, because the situation was very stressful. So I was trying to kind of mediate the situation. And at the end of the year, at the end of last year, all members kind of shared that they did feel that they had smaller shares, but because it was communicated well, they got the news on time. They knew exactly what was happening, why it was happening, so they didn't mind, and they actively kind of supported the principles and the framework of our CSA. So that's. I hope I answered the question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Tomáš. In a moment, we will turn to the audience to take 2 questions from the Q&A. Please be ready to be called on the panel to ask your question with your video on. If you don't want to ask your question directly, you can mention it and we will read your question. Before that, please allow me to ask you to fill in another poll, just to take a kind of mood check. Jocelyn, could you please start the poll?
Can you see it, Zsófi?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
Okay. So we ask, how is your food community currently doing? And well, it seems that many of your communities are growing at the moment. We are really happy. But I see one which is collapsing. I hope we can help you somehow with this webinar, and some which is struggling. Yes, there is a chance to ask questions from the panelists. So if you have any difficulties, you can also ask our guest today. Thanks for voting. And now I like to ask first, just a minute, Francois, to ask your question. Are you here?
Maybe you can read it, Sophie?
No, I cannot see his question.
Can you hear me now?
Hi, you are here. Yes, we see you.
Yes, I am.
Hi, so you had a
Just,
question. Please share with us.
Yes, I was wondering if in your CSA initiatives, you are developing, well, in your network, CSA network, more than just a CSA initiative, you are developing popular education tools and methods to help the CSA coordinator to have a better way to involve their members. In France, in the AMAP charter, so the French CSA AMAP, there is a principle which is education, popular education, and the active participation of all of the members into the CSA in a popular education approach. So it is very important, and we need that to be at the beginning of the CSA approach. Thank you.
Who will answer for this?
If I may start, well, yes, this is one of our goals, and by our I mean the National CSA Coalition that we formed last year, and one of the essential goals of the CSA Coalition was to disseminate through education and cooperation, and we are basically providing through individual consultations, through webinars, we are providing skills necessary for starting CSAs to, from ground up level guidance on how to set up a CSA, how to build up your skills as a coordinator. And also because of the CSA coalition that we now have, and we're meeting every month, we can connect better as a coordinators. We can share the ups and downs of our experiences, and then we can translate them into education programs and tutorials that we're offering these days, mainly through webinars, but we used to do also, before the COVID, we also used to do live events with other people physically involved. But yes, educational programs are for us one of the essential keys how to not only develop new CSAs, but also sustain the existing ones.
Thank you. Anika, would you like to add something?
I think I passed this on.
Okay, or Tom, maybe?
Yeah, I could say that in the UK, I know that like in France with the AMAP, like there is a kind of contract with the growers when they sign up to AMAP, as far as I understand. So, so they would commit to having a certain level of engagement with their members, and their members having a certain level of engagement with the project. In the UK CSA network have a charter, like a CSA charter, which isn't prescriptive as such, and we don't actually sign up to it. we had been discussing with the CSA network whether it should be, whether it should be monitored that each CSA in the UK signs up to this charter and sort of works by its rules. But as far as I understand at the moment, that's not the route we're going down. The charter is there literally just to tell people, this is the basic principles of CSA that we're aiming to work towards. So we don't as such have any particular sort of educational or advisory on how to engage your members and what level the members should be engaged and aware of the project. I think that's always like an overall principle of CSA to have the members engaged. And I think it's also something that the UK CSA network are very interested in developing and sort of always looking at how we can really engage our members more in discussion and debate and in empowering them within the project. But I think being quite sort of pragmatic currently, the focus is really on just getting as many CSAs as possible set up and running. And I think from our perspective, when I think of our 130 households, I'd say a lot of them aren't really very aware of the principles of CSA, even though when they sign up, they basically get all the information given to them. We send them like lots of information about CSA, and we try to make it quite succinct and understandable so they know the whole principles of what they're getting involved in. But I'd say a lot of people still, they just want their veg and they just want local produce, and they're not too concerned with the wider issues. But I think just the mere act of them getting involved in a CSA, they are going to become more aware of wider food issues. But yeah, I think it's something we need to push more in the UK.
Thanks, Tom. And we have another question from Laura, and she doesn't have a microphone, so I will read it out. This is a question to Tomáš. Some people don't read the newsletters or come to gatherings. How would you suggest to remember then the principles?
Yeah, thank you, Laura. This is a very good question, actually. What I do is, in the beginning of the year, I write personalized emails to new members, not just greeting them, welcoming them, but also specifying the principles. I personally talk to my members. I call them personally, time to time, and what kind of well, a lot of people, I think the diversification principle here is a key, because you can't approach with one solution all members. So what appears to be quite functional, not during the COVID, but if there wasn't a COVID, we find very useful just regular meetings in a bar, in a over a beer. We do a lot of book and clothes swaps, like a communal gatherings where we exchange, clothes and books. And we use this time to share about the principles, about the challenges. And this is the time to remind ourselves of the principles. And what proved to be very useful are communal gatherings with cooking and grilling. And this attracts a lot of members. And unfortunately, we don't have the garden that we used to have. So this kind of rules out. But I think the personal touch is important to talk to people either via email or cell phone, or personally during the pickup hours, just to check on them, how they feel about the whole CSA membership, etc. And then I can get very quick feedback, and I can get very quick solutions also with our farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the very active audience, and thanks to our panelists. Getting back to Tom, it seems a good basis for a higher level of commitment is that CSA members feel empowered and that their involvement is valued. How does that work in practice? How do you make fellow CSA members feel part of something important?
Yeah, thank you. It kind of very much leads on from the last question. Yeah, it is an ongoing issue of engagement with members. I think as time goes by, and we're in 7 years we've been running now, it is a bit like your membership is very fired up. When I think about our first AGM, I think all of our 50 members who first joined all came to the first AGM. And every year over those 7 years, there's less and less people. Although to some extent, I know the core group think like, well, people aren't leaving and they're happy with what's happening. It's almost like they feel like they don't need to come along and share their ideas because they're really happy with how things are going. But I think there is a risk that actually people go to sleep and they stop really engaging with the problem, with the project. So I'd say it comes on all different levels of how to empower your members and engage with them in that sense. So a few different ways where we've been doing it. Social media, obviously, we're regularly putting things on Instagram, Facebook. We do regular emails out to people. We do written newsletters. And we basically engage our membership in the wider work we're doing in other CSAs we're helping to set up, in the work we're doing with schools, in political debate we're involved in. So we basically sort of, we share all our activities with our members so they feel like they're part of the overall movement of CSA. And also, I'd say going back to that weekly hub, the fact that one of our growers is there every week to talk to members, just having that real connection between the person who's at the field, the person who's, just developing that relationship so they feel like they're part of it. And key to that is really working closely with our volunteers. So we've got a really good core group of volunteers. And what happens, we tend to have like seasonal volunteers. So at the moment, we've got maybe 10 regular volunteers who I think will be with us all summer. And actually, they form a really nice group. They all get to know each other. They socialize together. And we sort of really bring those group and bond them and bring them together. And that feeds back to our membership. Some of them are from the membership, some not, but they feel very much engaged and part of the project. And then I'd say it's really important to ask for support. There's a risk of actually getting too successful that people feel like you don't need them anymore. And I think particularly starting up, when you need to do fundraisers, you need to ask people to engage financially or to come along and help you build something, or to host a planting day or a weeding day or a harvesting day, just offering people as much as possible to say, look, actually, we need your help to harvest all the onions or to plant the potatoes or whatever it is, just giving people the opportunity to come and engage. And then I think engaging people in political discussion, if there's petitions around agriculture, sustainable agriculture, sending those out to our members. And then the schools work, we work with 5 local schools all year round. We've got a project now where we have a schools officer who basically works with the local schools. So we bring the children to the field and then we go into the school regularly and teach them about what we're doing. And a lot of our membership children have actually been involved in that scheme. And I think that gives them a real feeling of empowerment, that the children amongst their other classmates, they're really involved in our project and they're very proud of that when they come to the field with all their other classmates. And that feeds back to the families. And most recently this year, we're now actually, we've taken on 4 trainees this year. There's a new sort of Welsh Government funding that supports people between 16 and 24. So this year we've got 2 of our trainees' children training with us. And again, that's like real engagement at roots level, that actually their families have been members for 7 years and now their children are coming to train with us. So I think that feels like there's something really good happening there. And yeah, then lastly, I'd say just celebrating together, harvest party. Every year we've had some kind of big harvest fundraising event. And I think just bringing people together to celebrate actually what you've achieved every year gives them, gives everyone an understanding that they are part of this project, which is really working. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And please don't forget to share your questions in the Q&A. But we are really lucky now to have with us one of the facilitators of a national CSA network, Anika. So, Anika, what is, in your mind, the role of a national network in highlighting the principles of CSA?
This kind of connects off the question we had earlier, right? Well, our role is just to make principles of CSA visible, and like our network has a lot of information on how CSAs can work and what CSA is on the homepage, and we also have for new initiatives a starter kit that we give out. But it's not like that we have a concrete formulation what our idea as a network is, how much involvement and engagement this means then in the end. This is something each CSA finds out for itself, and it's also still a process we have in our network to find out how deep we want to formulate what our idea is, what we call it Solawi or CSA is. There we are still right now in a process and have an internal document that's not ready yet to be published, but will in some time. So it's, yeah, in Germany right now, it's more like connecting different CSAs, connecting knowledge that is there in different places, but not like setting up definite rules from our side. Yeah, and actually this workshop is interesting for us because we want to do something like this in German for our CSA. So I will see what I can extract from here and how we can do some German format out of this for German CSAs to get into this discussions, how to engage members, how to get these CSA principles communicated. Yes.
Thank you, Anika. And I would like to remind all of you again that after the next question, we will have a chance to read your questions, or you can ask your questions. So don't forget to write it to the Q&A. But now the next question is to Thomas. Communication is always a key aspect of community building. In your specific case, could you please explain how do you keep your members informed of what's going on? Tomáš, are you here with us?
Yes, thank you for that question, Sophie. I think I partially already. Can you hear me?
I cannot really hear you.
Not even now?
Now it's, yeah, we see you.
Okay. I think I partially answered the question already. I think we can look at it from two perspectives. One is the national perspective of we created already quite, I would say, quite consistent and sophisticated tools to keep informed so that our members are informed. And we use social medias. We have 3 Facebook platforms for slightly different agendas that evolve around organic farming, CSAs, and so on. So this is one of the tools. Another tool is a mailing list and something that we call news from the field, in which we regularly inform the members of our national CSAs about upcoming events, about webinars, etc. So this is another kind of broader tool that we're using. And considering my CSA, what I find very useful, and I got quite good feedback from our members, is kind of regular news from the farm, where I simply send our members up to 5 pictures from the farm with some quick comments, what's going on, because most of our members are not connected directly with the farm, with the reality on the farm. So this way, I'm trying to kind of keep them informed and suggesting what can they look forward to, what's growing at the moment, and things with a picnic style meeting where we simply share whatever comes up, whatever members feel like talking about.
Thanks a lot, Thomas. We will now turn the floor for the second round of questions. And as I know, Dana Wagler has a question. Can you share it with our panelists?
Sorry, it took me some time to find the unmute button. Start my video. Hi, everyone. I'm here representing CSA Sweden. I also run Three Oaks Community Farm just south of Stockholm. My question is, and this is something we've talked a lot about in our network, is how do you sort of explain the principles of CSA to members or other people without becoming preachy or dogmatic? I'd really like to hear your point of view on this question. Thank you.
If I may, to be perfectly honest, this question never occurred to me, or we never, or the core members of our CSA. However, well, I feel it's kind of vice versa, that we are constantly facing some challenges, either with crop failures or with mental breakdowns of the farmers, or different types of problems, challenges, and we're basically trying to apply the principles on those situations. So it's not that, of course, members got reminded in the beginning of the year about the principles, but it's more about retrofeed and retroaction, that we are in these situations. We have to deal with them somehow, and suddenly the situations come to us, and we have to face them. And now, what are the tools that we have? What are the solidarity tools? So one thing that we quite often use is a solidarity. We basically collect money for a specific cause. Some machine broke down, they can't farm without the machine, so we collect money extra to what they paid for, and so it's kind of let's say problem solution kind of style that we. But it's quite an interesting question that you ask. It will kind of stay in my mind definitely, and I will definitely reflect upon it. But to be honest, I don't really feel that we overwhelm our members with the load of principles and stuff. I don't think that's the case at all. But very, very interesting suggestion. Thank you.
I could also comment on that, just that I did actually answer in a written answer, but yeah, just very simply, I think in our case, we're not preachy at all, because I think the moment we start preaching to anyone, they just stop listening and they don't really want to engage. I think it's basically just about discussion. And, you know, I think most people who are interested in CSA are willing to be open and have open ideas and discussion and kind of understand how the system works. So yeah, I'd say we avoid being preachy altogether.
Yeah, and I would like to add that my experience is that we all need to learn to communicate about the different circumstances of people, because preachiness sometimes comes from not seeing or not being able to see how life and circumstances of other people are and why they are maybe not able to give as much or engage as much. And we in our discussions always try to encourage the people to share how their circumstances are, and then everybody can see why somebody can give more free time and somebody else cannot. And so we have an idea of engagement, but this can also be for somebody just clicking like in our social media and the other person working on the field. And then we talk about why each one has different resources and brings in different, that's, yeah. So I think this would be a way to not be preachy, but acknowledging ideas in different circumstances.
Thank you, Dana, for the question and also for our panelists. And we have a question from Mayu. We should wait some seconds.
Yep. Hello.
Hello, we see you.
Yep. Yep. I would like to ask about the three panelists and other attendants. Do you have any collaboration with chefs or restaurants in a local area? Because it's very important to promote or introduce about CSA or food culture or some indigenous seeds. So I am working in Vietnam. So we are collaborating with local chefs, professional chefs, and invite them to cook traditional food with students in secondary school and high school. So they have a school garden already, and we use vegetable from a school garden. And by with helping with collaboration of a local chef, professional chef, they value about the local food culture, and also the importance of local environmental protection, and also importance of collaboration among stakeholders in the local level. Thank you.
I'm happy to go ahead and, oh yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
Tom, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that question. We do a bit with chefs in different levels. The schools work we do, similar to the work you do. We use produce from schools' gardens that we work with and from our own gardens. And at the end of every season, we do a big pizza making project with the school, where we get a wood-fired oven and we make pizzas for the entire school, and using the basic produce that they've grown and comes from our field. And then over the winter, we run a soup project. So the children are using all the winter produce to make a soup. And when they're doing that, we also engage the parents of those children, because the schools we're working with are in areas of sort of high deprivation, where a lot of those families aren't cooking anything from scratch. A lot of them are eating just very basic processed food. So yeah, we do that. That's like a sort of cooking sessions with the school children and their parents. And then when we run events, we would have some of our members cooking and either selling food as fundraisers or just demonstrating different ways that the produce can be used. And we also had a couple of years ago, quite a sort of high profile chef came and did a TV program on site, and it was called Dirty Vegan, the program. And it was this guy basically who was converting people to veganism. And he came to our field and picked all sorts of produce. And then he fed a women's rugby team before their match. And he was trying to prove basically that you can use fresh organic produce and make vegan food and feed these tough women and they can still win their rugby match. So it was, it was all very funny, sort of tongue in cheek, but it was very quite high profile, and it generated a huge amount of interest in community supported agriculture. So yeah, things like that are great, I think.
Tomáš?
Sorry, I'll pass. My connection is somewhat unstable at the moment.
Okay. Should I also answer?
Thank you.
Yes, my Solawi in Düsseldorf, we do not do actively collaborate right now, but funnily we have a member who's a private cook, and he posts about what he's cooking with which ingredients and what is from the CSA. But that just happened. It was not planned, but would be interesting. Yeah.
Yes, this is really interesting, and thanks for the question. We have one more question from Ruth. We will see her soon, I think.
Hi there. I am logging in from the United States, and I think it's very interesting that I'm wondering if you all have national CSA networks. In our country, I think CSAs are a little bit more isolated. And so when I hear you sharing information, this is something that is really appealing. And we have a very loose network in New York City where I'm based, but it sounds as if your national networks are a great deal more organized. Is this true?
Well, if I may start, our national CSA network in Czech Republic is very young. We established it last year, so it's fairly new. Our main communication tool is a closed Facebook group where we share information, we share about each other so that we get to know each other a little bit more. And we have monthly meetings on a national level. But Czech Republic is much smaller than the US. Nevertheless, we were preparing and talking about this for last, let's say, 5 to 6 years, that we had this need to connect more, to share. And finally, last year, we were able to set up the, it's still a, informal group, but nevertheless, the function of it is already visible and quite appealing for everybody. So I encourage you to start discussion wherever you are.
Anika, maybe you are one of the coordinators of the German network.
Yeah, like I work half-time, 20 hours for the German network, and we are right now 5 employees in part-time. The German network is now 10 years old, and the movement in Germany is growing quite fast. And our network, I think, is quite important and doing good stuff. Like, for example, we have each year 2 big networking conferences, especially for CSAs that we organize, where you have a lot of open space and educational stuff. We have a counselors network where new initiatives can get help for starting, or also older initiatives can get to with questions. This winter we had a lot of webinars, how to start a CSA. We organize different stuff, like right now IT support. We have also a group that is active in doing work how to position yourself against the right-wing nationalist movements that try to get on the train with solidarity regional food things. So there's a lot of going on, and the network just helps to connect people, and I think it's really important and a good thing. And yeah, it's my job right now, so it's also paying my rent.
Tom?
Yeah, also in the UK, we have a UK CSA network. I suppose in reality, the states are so big that almost like there would need to be a network for each state, possibly. I don't know how that would work. But in the UK, it's a very it's like a real family. It's a really nice organization. There's a number of people employed. I'm one of the directors. There's quite a lot of growers who are directors of the UK CSA network. And I think there are probably 3 or 4 people employed at the moment. And the focus is really about pulling resources together, sharing ideas. We used to, pre-COVID, we'd have a big gathering every year where we'd all camp together, share workshops. People would run workshops for each other. And it would be an opportunity for people who were thinking about CSA to come to that camp and learn from established CSAs. And currently, also they're running lots of webinars on different elements of effectively running CSA. And promoting, a big part of it is actually promoting to government all the benefits of CSA and trying to raise awareness and resources for them. So I think that's what we're up to.
Thank you. And well, we should not forget that we have the International CSA Network Urgency. So we are quite lucky with the networks. Okay, now I would like to ask you a last feel-good question. What about motivating CSA members by having fun, celebrating, getting together? Could you please share any success story in keeping members involved? Tom? Maybe.
I think we've probably covered a lot of this, but I think specific success stories. I mean, for me, I think it's just the ongoing opportunity to come and be part of production, to come and volunteer at the field. I think actually it just, we have so many people that come through, both members and non-members, but definitely, like, if we're talking about members, I think that really, people just get so much out of actually coming there and being part of the production and realizing, seeing the reality of what's happening, how the food is produced, and really feeling part of that. And then I'd say, again, pre-COVID, every year we had a very big party, basically a big celebration event, and everyone was involved in organizing that. And we'd have live music and food and all sorts. And it would be, just a really big celebration that everyone would love. And it would also, we'd normally generate about £3,000 or £4,000 in that night as a fundraiser. We'd sort of do a big promise auction and raffles and duck races and anything we could do, basically. So it was all generations and lots of people coming together. I think that was, a really nice big shared event. And hopefully we can go back to doing that again.
Thanks. Tomáš, I remembered when we had the European meeting in Ostrava that there were big parties for the European CSA community. But how is it within your network? and the CSAs.
Well, yes, thank you for reminding me of the international CSA meetings, which are always great pleasure and fun and everything. On a smaller scale, each year we have a national CSA meeting where farmers and members, CSA members from all around Czech Republic come together, and we discuss current issues, and we share, we get a drink, and this is a very important part of getting to know each other and relating to each other more. What definitely works from my experience is sharing a meal, sharing communally things that members prepare and offer to the common table with grilling, etc. What Tom mentioned, and I can just underline, are very important farm visits where we can share meal with the farmers, which is a whole new experience, and getting to know the farmers and talking about the whatever the members want to talk about. And I think what's kind of important as well, I don't know how much fun it is so far, but for each year, my CSA, we set up an agenda that we want to work on. And for this year, it's PGS. We're starting a participatory guarantee system with our farmer. And I think I expect this will be a lot of educational fun. And also we are discussing inclusion of low-income family. So I hope to get over or I hope to get deeper into these sub-topics with our members, keeping it kind of light, even though sometimes it's very difficult. And but I think it seems that our members very much enjoy these topics, and they enjoy being involved in this kind of agenda. So and I'm coming back to one of the previous questions, how not to keep it dogmatic. I think through I feel kind of blessed that our members are very active, and we don't have to preach anything because they are conscious enough to embrace the solidarity principles by their own. So yeah, in a nutshell. Yeah, and thank you. These are like slideshows from the farm. This is our farmer, Zuzana, and with her husband Vojta. And this is what I do basically. Just when I'm visiting them, I take 5 pictures. I send them to our members with some comments, greetings from the farm. In this case, we were building a new shed with another coordinator of another CSA. So we're every time we come to the farm, it's with a purpose to help build something on the farm, or help with something that the farmers can't do by themselves.
Thanks. Anika?
Yeah, right now all the fun stuff is a bit complicated, but usually we would have on harvest days, sometimes we would at the end invite the people to bring food and have a big buffet together in the end. And we also had like a big starting of the season party and ending of the season party. And what we also did was like a visions day where we rented a youth hostel, not so far away, but still a bit away, where we stayed a whole weekend with a group of people discussing visions and things, cooking together. Yes, but this is all on hold now. And yeah, as you all know, this makes us sad. What also it was really nice to communicate that yeah, it's sometimes nice if people just bring a cake or bring beer. That because sometimes people forget that this is important for social getting together, and if you're not able to help out working because it's too hard on you, you still can bring some biscuits or cakes. And yeah, it is not founded, but it's my biggest wish that we will have a working group just for beer and cake in the future. And I think this will be a fun working group. Yes.
Thank you, Anika. Okay, so please let me remind you that this webinar was recorded. It will be available within a few days, so you can share it with all your friends or even within your CSA networks. Stay tuned. Thank you very much to our guests and to all of you for joining us. Again, a huge thank from all of us to the volunteer. Oh, no, today we did not have any interpreter, somehow it was here. Okay, but thank you for the whole team of partners and for the organizational supports. Please do check our social media accounts if you would like to stay in contact and hear about our future webinars, because there will be a Food and More webinar, which is called the second, on 25th May, on how to support your farmers, and the Food and More webinar 3 on 22nd June on food community mentors. We will now put up a short poll or survey so that you can share your thoughts and help us improve the preparation and the content of these webinars. You can see the link. Please take 5 minutes to answer it. We will keep the meeting open for a few minutes more so that you can have time to fill in the poll before ending the meeting. Thank you once again for joining us.